This special presentation is brought to you by Audible. For a free 30-day trial and to receive a free audiobook, just head on over to audible.com/GameBreaker.
GameBreaker TV.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to this special presentation interview with Camelot Unchained, Mr. Mark Jacobs. My name is Gary Gannon. You're watching GameBreaker TV, and joining me, Mr. Mark Jacobs. How are you, sir?
Good, Gary. How about yourself?
Excellent, excellent. It's been a while since we've chatted. I guess first up, really quick, maybe for some of the new viewers out there or people who may have missed our previous interviews, why don't you give me a brief overview of what Camelot Unchained is all about?
Sure. Camelot Unchained is an RvR-focused, massively multiplayer online role-playing game. We have 3 realms, tri-realm system. One realm is the Arthurians. The other is the Tuatha Dé Danann. And the third are the Vikings. And I'm sure I will get more cards and letters as usual about my terrible pronunciation of the TBD. Because no matter what I say, I will never, ever get it right. It's a game where everything is really centered around RvR or PvP. And it is a game that we are developing thanks to the help of all our founders from the Kickstarter and PayPal.
So yeah, it's been amazing to watch. I mean, that's how this whole thing started. You guys went to Kickstarter and funded, and it was really successful. Flash forward, I guess. So the big thing on Kickstarter always, right, is the transparency of especially for a game company to be kind of giving people like sort of a view on the inside as early as you guys have done. How has that been working out so far?
Well, from our perspective, we think it's working out great. From what our founders are telling us, we think they're happy. I mean, they keep telling us they're happy. They read our updates. They come onto our forums. Look, it's extra work, whether it's just doing a normal update or going through and doing the more lore-oriented updates than we've been doing. It takes time and effort on our part, but it's worth it. These guys have trusted us with their donations, and I think it is, frankly, a duty of anyone who gets their money via a Kickstarter to be as transparent as possible. And, we are on the forums. I can be found there pretty much every night talking to players. So I don't think we could be any more transparent if we wanted to.
So what? So since the Kickstarter's launch, it's been a while. I don't know. I know there's probably so many topics we could bring up what you guys have been working on, but give me like what are the big milestones? What have you guys been doing since the Kickstarter has ended?
Well, if you want something totally out of left field, I could talk about my trip to the Middle East.
Oh, sure. Research and R&D.
Research. And that is a very interesting and very surreal tale. Or we can talk about all the things we've also been doing.
We'll talk about that trip for a second. I mean, what was surrounding this trip? Was it a research trip to?
Not at all. It was
not at all. Just totally needed a vacation.
No, yeah. I have never been to the Middle East before. I mean, never even really close to the Middle East. And, one day we get this call. And it's from a gentleman who, I won't mention, their names because it sounds like terrible name dropping if you do, who said, I represent Sheikh something. Now, you hear that and you go, okay, I'm being punked.
Right.
Because there is no way in this or any other lifetime I'm getting a call, you would think, from these people. And when I mean these people with a lot of money, very big name, very, wonderful business legacy. And, I have to be at least somewhat skeptical. And I am. And we have a phone call. And I then go out, do my research, see if these guys are for real. And they say, why don't we get together for a meeting? We're going to be in Washington anyway. And I'm like, sure, why not? And, you know, I go to the hotel, and I am absolutely expecting, you know, cameras, you know, somebody to jump out at me and go, gotcha.
Fans be like, Mark Jacobs, you've been punked.
Exactly. I am so ready for that. And, you know, I walk into the hotel, and I see two gentlemen waiting for me. And I go, I know you, and I know you. Oh, my God, this is for real.
Wow.
So we end up having, you know, a great conversation, and I go up to meet some more people, and they say, hey, why don't we get together tomorrow? Sure. Come into the studio. They meet the guys. They see the lights hanging from the ceiling. They see, you know, a bunch of people sitting at desks. And the first thing that the elder sheikh says was, this is a young office, which is true, because, I mean, everyone besides, you know, me, really, and really maybe Mike, you can really say are young. And, again, have a lovely conversation. And during the conversation, they go, why don't you all come to the Middle East? Like,
why don't you just all come down to the Middle East? We've got, you know.
Just come hang out with us in our country. And I'm like, wow, okay, I don't know what to say. And he said, I'll send the jet. Honestly. So I say that's really great, but why don't we talk first before you send a jet to take the entire studio to this, you know, country that I and actually almost nobody else here has ever been to. So we end up talking some more, and I'm like, okay, look, I'll come out. Let's just have it, you know, I'll come out, spend a few days, you know, we'll talk some business, and it'll be fun. So they said, that's great. So I end up going there, and I have one of the most fascinating and interesting and at times surreal experiences of my life. And it's not like I haven't been anywhere besides Virginia. I mean, obviously I've been, you know, all over the world on business. But one evening, I am sitting out here in the middle of the desert, essentially. And I'm sitting to the right of the elder sheikh, surrounded by other sheikhs and some other people who I don't know. And we're sitting out truly in what you would look at and go, this is a bit of a desert. On the other hand, there is a giant TV that we are sitting listening to an Egyptian singer. So here's the kid from the Bronx, okay? And, you know, I've never hidden that I am a guy that's
sitting in the desert
from
with
the
a
Bronx,
bunch of sheikhs.
sitting in the desert with a bunch of fascinating, interesting individuals, sheikhs and who knows even above, business guys, just sitting and watching this singer on a giant TV outside while there are sounds coming from all around. It was fascinating.
So are you able to talk at all about what the actual meeting and greeting and everything is all about, or where that's gone?
Sure. I mean, within reason. I mean, look, they were interested. They loved what they saw from the Kickstarter. We had great conversations. But at the end of the day, as much as I like them, and I think they liked me as well, anything we would have done at that point would have meant a change to Camelot. And there was no way, and it's going to sound really self-serving, and actually, frankly, I don't care if it does. I'm not going to do it. And that is what I said. I really like them, and like I said, they like me, but I made a promise to everybody who's backed our game that we're going to do the best we can. And as flattering as their offer was, and I've received a lot of flattering offers, you know, really since Dragon's Gate, since Dark Age of Camelot was successful. And this, in some ways, was, without a doubt, the most flattering offer I have ever received in my life. And, you know, maybe one day off camera I'll tell you about it, Gary. But it was without a doubt the most flattering offer I've ever received.
Well, we talked about this early on when you did the Kickstarter, and this was your This is like your passionate moment of getting back into the garage almost for gaming as a game designer, right? I mean, this was you'd kind of gone through the system, you'd worked for the big companies, you've had like large budgets and things like that. And this was really your like, I want to get back to the roots of what it felt like back in those early days of being in a room with a bunch of developers and just like really creating something. And there's got to be something said that, you know, when people can, you know, rain down buckets of cash on a project, that it changes, right? It changes, like everything changes. It gets more compartmentalized. You get more people, and like you kind of lose a little bit of a disconnect with things like that. So I gotta say, you know, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. I gotta say, I gotta commend you for sticking up for all the people out there who funded the Kickstarter, and you know, you've got their back to some extent. You're really not gonna like let this go, and you're gonna do what you guys can do with and see this vision through.
I had to. I mean, you know, and look, I'm only human. And after we had the final conversation, and they said again some incredibly flattering things, and some of the nicest language, frankly, I've ever heard. I had my moment. We all do. And, you know, I went back to my hotel room, and, you know, I called my wife, and I called my sister, and I called one of, you know, my advisors and go, you know I did the right thing, but man, oh man, you know, what I just turned down was incredible. You know, am I the biggest idiot on the planet? And, you know, they all said to me, especially, you know, my wife, she said, no, you're just you. And, you know, I really like these people, Gary. They were great. You know, we had some lovely talks. But at the end of the day, you know, my exact words to these folks were, I made a promise to all of our backers, you know, over at that time, you know, 14,000, 15, whatever the number is up to deliver the best Camelot Unchained game I can. And to do that, or to do something that would hurt that, you know, even if it might put some more money in my pocket, I'm not going to do. It's just not me. And
good for you.
For better or worse.
All right, so let's shift the gears on the
That's the coolest thing that's happened.
That is a great story. I gotta say, that was a fantastic story, and I could almost.
Oh, I got more. Well, so one day I'll tell you the whole thing. It would take hours.
It'll take hours and hours. All right, so let's shift a little bit into like the Camelot Unchained stuff specifically. What have been the big updates since Kickstarter has funded? What have you guys been really in the trenches working on?
Oh boy, everything from getting, you know, the first race cycle done, and, you know, what I mean by a race cycle, what we want to do is put out a lot of different concepts of our races to the founders and let them think about it, see how they react to it, and then do some iteration on them, but then also move on to another race cycle. I guess I've teased our founders that I want to have more than 24 races available for them to look at over the next 2+ years. And, you know, whether it's the Hamadryad that you're showing now, or, you know, the Banshees, or the Valkyries, all the other stories and races we've been putting together, that's been part of our focus, because it's involved, obviously, concept art. It involves modeling. It involves animation. It involves me writing, you know, these lore stories. So that's part of what we've been doing. On the technical side, the team has been working really hard on some very boring, you know, stuff, because core foundational tech is boring. At the end of the day, it's not as sexy as putting up a great video. It's not as sexy as, you know, showing combat. But it's all stuff that's necessary to be, you know, if we want to get off on the right foot. So the team, the programming side, has been doing that, and look, we're right on track still for a January internal test. Other than that, we are spending just a lot of time on the forums, talking to people, gathering feedback. We hired, finally got a producer in here. As you know, we brought in another programmer, community manager as well, and you know, just announced we now have our official community managers for Europe, and that's a quick overview of all the stuff we've been doing.
What's been the most exciting sort of like milestone for you personally? Like, what do you think you've really hit on as far as like, is it the obviously like the gamers out there probably love the animation tests and stuff you're putting up on YouTube, because this is when we actually get to see, you know, in all its glory, kind of like the cool stuff, the animations, the artwork in motion, that kind of stuff. So, what's the big thing for you?
The animation tests. I think you're absolutely right. I think, you know, if you want to look at stuff that, you know, we're doing here, you know, we don't have mocap, obviously. You know, this is just the work of our, you know, modeler Mike and our, you know, animator Scott. And, you know, we're very excited by what they've been able to come up with, you know, so far. On the technical side, you know, again, it's just getting everything we need to get into place before January. Not exciting to the rest of the world, but for us, getting in the basic client-server architecture, you know, getting the main loop in the server running nicely, getting encryption, you know, running, getting the first pass at the animation system in it, the particle effect system, you know, as well. All of that, you know, doesn't sound all that amazing, but when you see what we'll be doing with it in a few more months, then it's going to get a lot cooler.
So when can players expect to really start seeing getting in there and kind of doing actually where are you at internally? Like, give me like a brief idea of like where are you at internally as far as like what are the devs doing on a day-to-day basis playing, and what are they actively like playing stuff and combat and
Nope, none of that yet. You know, and that's the thing. We really wanted to focus on getting all the core tech that we need, or a lot of the core tech, done right from the beginning. So, you know, we're not rushing, and that's also one of the reasons we took down the pledges. We're not rushing into making this game, or I should say, we're not rushing to try to make things that would make more money for this game in the short term. You know, yeah, we could have taken what we did with Smackhammer, make some changes, put in combat right away, and go, hey, look at what we've done. But that would be BS. So right now, nobody's playing the game. They have jumped in various parts, you know, of the server. They're, you know, testing stuff on the client, but it's not like there's a game, there's combat or anything like that at this point. Nor should they, should there be, because if we were rushing to that, we would be doing things the wrong way. We'd be trying to, you know, I don't know whether it's trying to. We would be spending more time on trying to get more people excited versus doing what we know we need to do in order to, again, have a great foundation for what's going to come next. I mean, we're still 2 years out, and I wanted the team, and Andrew is 100% in agreement with this. We wanted the team to focus on getting all that, again, foundational stuff done now, so we don't have to worry about it later.
Has there been any, I guess, has there been any, like, obviously there's probably tons of quality feedback from the community when you put stuff out, but has there been anything in particular that kind of caught your eye and sort of like really helped maybe alter or change a little bit on not the focus or the scope in a big way, but
nothing in a big way. I mean, you know, there's always great little bits we see, you know, on the forums. Sometimes they're a new idea, but a lot of the time so far, Gary, they've just been confirmations of things that we're doing. You know, so like I know a number of times already, and some are going to be coming over the next few months. I would read a forum post, and the forum post would go, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did this in that game? And I just got to sit back going, yep, we got that.
Yep, we're doing it.
Yeah, we are. Or, you know, hey, wouldn't it be great if the magic system was like this? And I just sit back and go, yep, that's another checkbox. You know, even the other day I was talking about the stat system, and some of our, I don't want to say more vocal because it's not like they're yelling, but more, how about committed posters? Posted a number of, hey, I'd love to see these stats in the game, and you know, I said, hey, they already are. This is the sort of thing we're also thinking about. So, right now there's just a ton of things that we agree with, some that we're thinking about. Some, for example, I put out a crazy idea for a race called the Puka, based on, not the 6-foot-tall rabbit, from the Jimmy Stewart classic, but the, Puka in mythology. And, it was just a fun story that came into my head, as I was reading the legend. And, I wasn't sure if I was going to use it or even if I really wanted to use it in the game. But I just put it out and asked the players or the founders what they thought about it. And they gave us a lot of interesting feedback. Some really liked it, some didn't like it at all, and some, had very strong concerns about it. And that's exactly why we're, have not only gone to the trouble to get the forums up as quickly as possible, after we launched, but why we're spending so much time there. We want to get that kind of feedback, from our founders.
You mentioned 24 races is what you're looking at. Why so, tell me why so many? I mean, that seems like that's a hefty number of races. So what's the idea there?
Well, there won't be that many in the game at launch. What we promised the players right now is that there will be at least 12 at launch, 4 per realm. The reason why I want to have more, I want to get more feedback on things. Obviously, I'm hoping we will, when we put up the pledge goals again, that we will hit, some of the higher tiers, the stretch goals. But even if we don't, I want our founders to look at, the possibilities and help us choose the game that they want to play.
Now, does that, you said that's how many races you're looking at? How many classes are you looking at? Do you have that nailed down?
Yeah, right now it's 4. Okay. Again, that's also part of additional stretch goals. Though, as you can imagine, Gary, the one that is the most controversial is the stealther. Whether you want to call them assassins, whether you want to call them rangers with stealth. Boy, oh boy, is that a never-ending debate on the forums. And I mean debate.
So get in there and jump in and add to the debate for sure. What are some of the new race announcements? You got the this is one of the newer ones, correct?
Well, the latest one was the Leprechaun, the Lorchapans, the Leprechaun type, and we had the Valkyries, which are coming out really well, and then we had the next one, the last one in this race cycle, which I thought was going to be a 1 or 2 part story. I just finished part 5 yesterday, and I probably got 1 or 2 more to go. I don't know where this stuff is coming from, man. I just started writing, and the next thing I know, I'm writing about the depths. I'm writing about these other characters. I'm talking a little bit about magic, and it's fun, but boy, I need a break from writing stories.
What's here? I got the Leprechaun here coming up here in a second. What's the story behind the Leprechaun?
Well, this guy, like most of the races, or almost all of the races, hopefully, they've all been touched by the Veilstorms. And his story is actually based just a teeny tiny bit on a very famous Irish tale about a thief as well by the name of G'day. G'day, mate. No, sorry. Everywhere in Australia, anyone who's listening to this has now put a hit out on me. And his story is that, like, again, almost all the races in the game, his life and the life of his sister were horribly touched by the Veilstorms. She is essentially killed by them, even though he has to take her life because she's become an abomination. And it is, it's a redemption tale. It's got, bits of Scrooge, maybe a bit of The Grinch Who Stole Christmas in it. It's about, in his case, one man who then becomes, the first, or one of the first of his kind, story going from a bit of a hero to a villain, and then back at the end of the day he chooses to be a hero once again.
So let me, you're obviously spending a lot of time in building up this rich backstory based on, tales and things like that, and you're putting this all up there on the site for people. Can players expect to get this sort of lore and backstory out of the game or in game, or is this much more flavor backstory that you want the players to, find throughout their journey through the website and forums and fan fiction and things like that?
Both, I hope. We've been very clear that Camelot Unchained is not a story-based game. You're not going to be going on quests where you go from one question mark to the next question mark, getting a lot of text that most people aren't going to read, or if they do, they'll skim it. But we do want to have a lot of story which can be told before you get into the game, some within the game, but more in the big reveals than just okay, today you're going to find out a little bit of the story. Because frankly, with the mechanism to do those little things, doesn't fit our game. It really fits a quest-based, whether it's a PvE game or even an RvR game, which this game is not. But there will be lots of places, whether it's through the website, or down the road, hopefully when we are successful, we could do some interstitial on character creation, so you can have some bit of a better background on your race. But also within the game, once you accomplish certain things like creating your character or creating your class for the first time, where you give us the opportunity to give you a bit more of a story.
Let me ask you this: for people who may not have, followed the whole Kickstarter thing, you are a subscription-based game, correct? You said you're not.
Oh, yeah.
You're not interested in going. It's not a free-to-play game. There will be a subscription. But what's your thought on? We're starting to see even subscription-based MMOs have cash shops in addition to the subscription. What are your thoughts on that?
As you can imagine, Gary, pretty strong.
Controversial subject. I know.
Not for me. I don't mind. I think it is a very controversial subject for a lot of games. Look, I think if you're paying a full price for a subscription game, and by that I mean certainly what people are charging now or even more, just before our users take out the pitchforks, I don't mean we're going to charge more. I've said the opposite. As you guys know who've heard our Kickstarter videos or seen what I've written. But I think that when you agree to take or to charge that kind of price, that you really shouldn't go out and over-monetize the game. A cash shop for certain services like character transfers. Okay, I get that. Cash shop for all sorts of things that used to come with the game, or a game subscription, or should come with a game subscription. To me, that sounds more and more like our U.S. airlines than game developers. I think that for most of these studios, or for myself even, if we were looking again, and we're not, to set up a cash shop, it would have to be for services that would be again, very obvious, or even for things that had a very limited appeal, but the money would be used really to repay for the the effort that went into making those items or doing that certain thing. But like I said, I'm not a big believer in it. We have no plans on having a cash shop in the game, and the only thing we have ever talked about publicly, or even privately for that matter, is if we wanted to have, if we were so successful that we did character transfers or things like that, then we would think about it. But our players won't have to worry about, hey, I just got the subscription, and oh, you actually wanted a bag with that, or you wanted, a sword with that. No, we're not going to do that.
All right, so tell me what's heading for the future. What do you guys got in the next few months? What are the big things happening, and any plan to hit any conventions, or what kind of content you guys are going to be showing off?
The big thing, Gary, is internal testing, man. I mean, that's really the first step. Get our people in January. See if the server blows up. I mean, that's really it.
When can we expect that? You know, that's the big question in everybody's mind who's backed it. They're all like, when do we get in? When do you guys have like a date that you sort of are a window?
Just January. I mean, obviously, with the holidays, with people getting sick, all I've said is January right now. But we do want to get, hopefully internal testing will go really well and people will come into the game. The server can handle the load. And maybe we'll invite more people in to see if we can break it. It's very important for us to try to break the server. You want to, if you want to discover that kind of major design flaw in the server's design and construction, you want to find that now. You don't want to find that 18 months from now when you do your first mass test and all of a sudden, things. And this, by the way, is a story from Dark Age of Camelot's development, and it's totally true. You don't want to find out that on person number 500 or 1001, the server crashes because the define was only up to 1,000. I kid you not. I absolutely. That's
a true story. That's exactly what happened. Something in the code said 1,000 and 1,001. It broke like that.
And I don't remember if it was 1,000 or 500. It was some number because this is going about 15 years ago. But it was some number. The server had been running great. The game was running great, and then boom, just dies. And we're looking at the code, or Rob's looking at the code. And it's like, yep, I got it, and that's all it was. It was something that simple. And you don't want to make those kind of mistakes, but people do all the time. So if our initial test goes well, we're going to bring in more people to see if going above our internal test, about 1,000 people. What
will that internal test kind of feel like? If you kind of give me like what do you think?
Well, things go well. Over the next 2 months, if things go well, you'll have an account login. You'll come into the game, or you'll come into the manager. You'll choose what race you want to play. We'll have multiple models up, and you'll be able to go out into a world, or
not
a
the world,
very big world, a really kind of small one. And you'll be able to, hit each other over the head with weapons, and you may have a special attack. If things go great, that's where we will be, and that would actually be ahead of where I had hoped we would be initially. Frankly, when January opened up, when we put in the January date, what I told people, just expect to go in there and see if you can log in and stand around and do nothing, frankly.
Welcome to a true beta test for you people who backed and you're waiting to get in, because this will be a true beta test when you get in, not like a lot of other games.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been very clear about that with people, as you know, Gary. We want people to test the way they used to test, and to come into the various stages of the game the way we know will help us make a better game.
Well, that's always been what I thought was so interesting about this model, but also on your side of the fence, what must be to some extent, quite scary, especially because back in the day, when you had true beta testing, you also didn't necessarily really have the social media outlets that the internet kind of has developed now. So now you, as a developer, I could also see like, wow, this has got to be scary, because there's a certain portion of your community who are still going to back something, come into this game. You could tell them till you're blue in the face, like, hey, this is a beta, this is going to break, you're just going to be doing basically nothing, and they are still going to get on Twitter and Facebook and say, this game is crap, I can't do anything. And it's like, but we told you, like, this is a beta test, this is not a game yet, but you're still going to run that risk, right? That's the reality of it, is that you're still going to see those posts no matter what. Absolutely. And the mob mentality of the internet is really freaking scary, because it's like, people could start jumping on it, and they're kind of just like, just saying outlandish things, and it's like all of a sudden you could see a project that is really going in a great direction all of a sudden steer off and socially head off into a direction that, like, the interwebs feel it's not going in the right direction. And then you have to kind of combat that on your end somehow through media and kind of explain it. So I always thought this is a really interesting time to watch how you guys are all doing this stuff, because it's kind of never been done before in this era of social media.
Oh, and you're absolutely right, Gary. And it's scary as heck, especially if you're a developer who has to rely on box sales or downloads to make back your cost of the game. I mean, you know, when you look at the MMOs, and it obviously applies to standalone games as well. But if you look at the MMOs that are in development, like Elder Scrolls, I mean, obviously that is not a small budget game. It's been in development for quite a while. You've got some great people working on it, a great studio, a great publisher, really, in ZeniMax behind it. You've got the association with Bethesda, and you know, with their smart people. And I'm sure every time that a video comes out that doesn't show them in the best light, they worry, and it's scary. And you know, you don't want to say, "Oh, it's unfair," but because it is fair. It's not nice, but it's fair, because we use these same tools. You know, whether it is Twitter or Facebook or videos, to get people excited. So we have to prepare for occasionally them not being excited. And we do have to prepare for, you know, the founder, you know, going off and just being really pissy because he didn't like something and, you know, flame us. It's part of, unfortunately and fortunately, the way things have to be done. And the one thing that's a major advantage for us is that we're not expecting this game to go out and sell millions of copies. I mean, that'd be lovely, but it's not going to happen. It's not that kind of game. So our players, even though, you know, we've only gotten hopefully a smaller percentage of them, if some people don't like what they see 6 months from launch, fine. You know, we've got 6 more months to change their mind, and even if we lose a few, again, we've also used social media, or in this case, Kickstarter, to fund the game. So we can't sit around whining about or being terribly upset, other than if somebody breaks, you know, the NDA, and that's a whole different matter. But you know, once you lift that, if people aren't happy, you know, I think you have to take it seriously. You have to try to find out why they're unhappy. Is what they're saying right, and deal with it. You know, but it is scary, and for those, you know, big games, no matter how good they look, and no matter how good they may be, you know, it only takes a few, you know, very angry players to get management worried.
So last up, what do you think, kind of tying into that? So you used Kickstarter to fund the game, but you have a pretty clear vision of what Camelot Unchained is, right? This is your game. It's designed. Of course, those things are going to change throughout development and all that kind of thing. But what do you think of this whole? I'm calling it like a new way of developing, where there's a couple companies out there basically not even really defining what the game is, and they sort of seem to be slightly scattered on what the scope of the game is, and they're sort of taking the position of, we're going to let the community develop the game based on feedback. And we're seeing a couple, and I'm not going to mention names obviously there, but I think some people know what I'm talking about, and you're seeing them out now and you can actually play them, and it almost seems as they're running in circles and they almost can't figure out, well, what is this game? And they keep, I mean, do you think can that possibly work in you know, kind of letting the community drive the actual development and choices that goes into the game, or do you just kind of go down a rabbit hole and it's quite scary?
I think it's scary no matter which way you do it, honestly. Do I think it could work? Absolutely, Gary. Do I think it could also be an absolute disaster? Of course. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, look, you've had guys with a singular vision in charge of projects, and they've, you know, been disasters. You've had people with a singular vision, and they've been successful, whether it's a game or, you know, obviously other than the fires that have now just unfortunately hit the Teslas. But you look at, you know, where Elon Musk was, you know, a few years ago with Tesla, and he stuck to his vision.
Almost going bankrupt.
And, you know, I'm sorry?
Almost going bankrupt. He was almost
exactly.
he was almost done.
Exactly, and now he's being, hailed as, a true visionary and, an even wealthier man than he was before. So, I do think, though, on the other hand, that crowd development for the right game can also produce something that's good and sometimes very interesting. But I think it has just as much and maybe even a greater chance of failing.
How do you view Camelot in that aspect? Where do you see Camelot fitting into that?
Camelot is being designed by us. At the end of the day, that is what we pitched to our founders, and the backers will come next. Is like, look, we want to hear your opinions. Absolutely. We want to, look for some great ideas, because one of the things my guys hear me say all the time here, I don't care where the idea comes from within the studio. I don't care if it's an artist. I don't care if it's a programmer. I don't care, if it's our community manager. I don't care if it comes from the forum. A great idea is a great idea. And so we are always on the lookout for those. But they backed us to make our vision because they believed that we had the right vision. Because if we had to rely on getting even a simple majority opinion from all of our backers, we would end up spending a lot of time trying to convince people, to give us that opinion and to get to the point where they are in agreement, because it's tough. It's tough to get, even 13 people to agree on everything, let alone 10,000 or 20,000 or, Chris and his awesome success so far with Star Citizen, over 300,000, backers so far to agree. Mm-hmm. So, again, I think both systems are, acceptable as long as you're out, as long as you're open with it. If you tell your founders or you tell your backers that, hey, we want you guys to tell us what you want, and they know that going in, that's fine. I also think it's, just as important for someone like me or some of the other developers, to stick to our guns. Because frankly, if we wanted somebody else to tell us exactly what game we wanted to make, we would just be dealing with the publishers.
Good point. Always a pleasure, sir. Always interested to see where you guys are at. For more information, of course, you can go to CamelotUnchained.com. That is where Mr. Jacobs is updating constantly. I don't know where you find the time to middle all these updates, but man, oh man, there's constant updates. So if you're looking to follow a PvP RvR-centric MMO, this is the one to keep your eye on. Go over to CamelotUnchained.com. Mark Jacobs, always a pleasure, sir. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Can't wait to see how this thing progresses through 2014.
Thank you, Gary. It's a pleasure as well to be here.
You can follow me at GameBreaker TV or Gary at Gary Gannon on Twitter as well. And be sure to keep it locked in, dialed in every day, all day to GameBreaker.tv. We'll see you next time.